guys, it's Clint with Night Shift, and this week David Grusch gave a really interesting interview on the ICER YouTube channel. ICER stands for the International Coalition of Extraterrestrial Research, and it's a nonprofit organization made up of scholars and academics from various fields who share the common belief that we're not alone in the cosmos. Their YouTube content is outstanding. What a lot of people zeroed in on in this interview was his statement that the number of alien bodies that we have is in the double digits. And that is astonishing. I mean, just to chew on that for a moment, if he's saying double digits, it's got to be a big number. I mean, let's just say 99 in a variety of different conditions and morphologies. So 99 various types of aliens are sitting in a freezer somewhere. What? The story gets even weirder, and I so many people focused in on the double digits thing that a lot of other interesting things that he said kind of got glossed over. And so tonight I wanted to take a few moments and just go through some other things that he said in the interview, which I think are really fascinating. So let's take a listen to this first clip, and then I'll be right back.
So, Dave, could you tell us something about the involvement of private U.S. corporations into the reverse engineering program or programs?
Yeah, there's certainly been private corporations involved, both federally funded research and development centers and for-profit companies that have contracted with the U.S. government over the years. Like I mentioned in other interviews, the U.S. government overlaid the Manhattan Project secrecy, personnel, generally what elements were involved corporately and governmentally in that too. Atomic Energy Commission, which morphed into Department of Energy, Nuclear Regulatory Commission later, and that is why you see in what we call the Schumer Amendment in the United States that hopefully will be signed here very shortly, and maybe it'll be signed by the time the conference happens, where they cite the Atomic Energy Act of 1954 and other provisions within the unclassified Schumer Amendment. That's because they understand that the secrecy justification ran along the lines of U.S. nuclear secrets.
I think if you look at this issue long enough and you come at it from whatever direction you come at it, if you keep going, eventually you're going to come back to the same core issue here. This is about energy. Energy is the fountainhead of everything else that happens in our civilization. So the groups that control the flow of energy are at the source of all economic productivity, progress, expansion. They're at the source of it. And that's where the power is. Of course, in the shadow of World War II, in the grip of the Cold War, as craft are coming in and into the possession of the United States military, it does make sense that someone is going to have to start to take apart this problem and figure it out. And the most effective groups that we had at the time to do this were already engaged in the atomic project and weapons development. Our military-industrial complex was the place where all this was going to happen. It's just the way our civilization is set up to digest problems. That's where all the money is. That's where all the brain power is. But there's a question there. And if you remember when we talked about Colonel Corso and how he set up the reverse engineering program, we'll get to that in a moment because David Grusch, actually, they asked him about this. We've got decades and decades and decades now of this runaway technological development that's happening in private industry, funded in large part by taxpayer dollars that were earmarked for legitimate defense spending, but then somehow folded into these super stealthy, top secret ninja black programs to develop high-end technology. But remember, at the core of this thing, it's about energy, right? So the Atomic Energy Commission is put in charge of the secrecy over this. The Department of Energy is in charge of the secrecy around this issue. And you have not only one program, not just one program, but you have dozens probably, or many dozens of individual small programs all spun off. I mean, think about what 75 years of corporate progress looks like. Think about what happened in the last, I mean, the iPhone just came out in 2008. It's not that long ago. And look at what's happened since then. So in just the time that we've developed smartphones, do you think that the stuff that they were sitting on from 70 years ago, they just shelved it and didn't work on this stuff? So that's why the Schumer Amendment is so critical. Okay, the Schumer Amendment is designed to be the bunker buster missile that goes into the military industrial complex and explodes from underneath and then shatters this whole dome of secrecy. Let me just read to you something from the Schumer Amendment. And this is on page 57. One of the things that the Schumer Amendment does is put together a disclosure panel made up of 12 individuals, 12 experts in various fields chosen by different branches of government and then put together into one group. And this group's job is to go out and get the secrets, go wherever the building is that the craft is stored in, the one that's so big they had to put a building over it. This group can walk into the front door. They have the full power and authority of the federal government to go inside and put their hand out and touch this UFO. So just know that what I'm about to read to you, that's what's coming behind it. So this is on page 57 of the Schumer Amendment, S2226. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Exercise of eminent domain. The federal government shall exercise eminent domain over any and all recovered technologies of unknown origin and biological evidence of non-human intelligence that may be controlled by private persons or entities in the interests of the public good. Any and all such material, should it exist, shall be made available to the review board for personal examination and subsequent disclosure determination at a location suitable to the controlling authority of said material and in a timely manner conducive to the objectives of the review board in accordance with the requirements of this title. Boom goes the dynamite. That's teeth. They're saying that these guys can go into any building, any facility, at any level of classification, and they get to see it. They get to see the bodies. So this is the group. That's what's so critical about this piece of legislation. So I'm going to go on to the next clip here, where he talks about other whistleblowers, and this is at 8:52.
As you know, in 1971, when I was a lieutenant of the Italian army, serving in an elite NATO unit with atomic missiles in northern Italy, I was asked by two United States Army officers if I was aware that the United States had recovered crashed UFOs and the bodies of their pilots as well. So, in any case, you can confirm that the same kind of declarations that you publicly provided have been provided in classified environment by other military or intelligence officers?
Yes, those same facts were confirmed to me by people with firsthand knowledge that worked on those programs, that there have been crashes and we've retrieved craft and biological material, bodies, if you will, like I've stated previously publicly, yeah.
Can you provide at least an estimate of how many whistleblowers have come forward?
Yeah, so I believe there was a news article lately that discussed, I think it was like 28 or 30 came forward to the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARROW. And I, of course, am not involved in that part, but that's the numbers that I saw in a news article lately. But in terms of how many have come to the Intelligence Community Inspector General, I'd say about a dozen or so. Some of the whistleblowers I don't personally know, so I don't know who in addition they may have brought forward as well, either to back up their claims or to file independent complaints. But it's certainly not just me. I just was the one that took it for the team and went public. But there's certainly, at least a dozen or so people behind the scenes like me, but also those that actually worked on the program firsthand that, touched the craft, if you will.
A dozen or so individuals that have touched the craft. Think about that. That's pretty astonishing. A dozen or so people that have touched the craft have come forward, some of them directly to the Inspector General. Wow. So think about what that means. They know where the craft are. They know where the bodies are. They have the legislation to go in there and get them. Gang, I know people think that I'm overdoing this sometimes when I say the disclosure train has left the station, but we're on it. Like, this thing is rolling down the track. You need to go read this legislation. If you haven't read S2226, take a minute. It's about a 30-minute read, but it's worth it. Okay, so let's skip ahead to the next clip here. This is at 11. Here we go. Check this out.
You can indirectly confirm at least part of what the late Colonel Philip Corso wrote in his The Day After Roswell book concerning the reverse engineering operations being operated by private corporations with materials provided by the military?
Yes, at least at the very least. I mean, I can't verify his whole story. Of course, I think he died in 1998. I think I was 11 or 12 years old then, but certainly the U.S. government, if they had custodianship, they would give some pieces and parts to different private contractors for reverse engineering. At least that general story is true. The other aspects of the story, and if he was specifically involved, I'm not certain. Like I was, obviously never able to interview him or investigate this stuff in the scope of my duties, but generally that statement is true.
There it is, Colonel Corso in full effect. If you aren't familiar with who Colonel Phil Corso is, let me just bring you up to speed. Colonel Phil Corso is a U.S. Army whistleblower who wrote a book in 1997 called The Day After Roswell. And in that book, he describes the beginning, the early genesis of the crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, wherein he was the officer who was put in charge of some of the materials that were recovered from the Roswell crash. And he was tasked with going to our top companies around the country and giving them bits and pieces of this craft so that they could begin the process of reverse engineering those materials and figuring out what we were dealing with. Some of the stuff that came out of that program, night vision technology, Kevlar, super advanced microprocessors, the things that went on to revolutionize our own world in the decades that followed. The deal that Colonel Corso made with these companies was basically that the U.S. Army would fund their research so long as the technology they developed was given to the Army to increase their competitive edge. In return for that, the companies got to keep the patents that they created on the technology that came out of this reverse engineering program. So right out of the gate, we had this public-private sort of partnership that over the decades that would follow revolutionized our world.
Well, the book is really my experiences as I lived them in research and development of the Army under General Trudeau, Arthur Trudeau, and he drew me back in and put me in charge of that and established a Foreign Technology Division for me. And these were the artifacts on a crashed flying saucer, which we used the word applied engineering. Was Dr. Teller was still alive, knows he helped him. And we fed these things. He gave me the job of finding industry or scientists who were close to these items and feed us to them in normal R&D projects.
And you're saying these items came from somewhere else?
They came from a flying saucer.
How do you know that?
Because they were marked in the files as coming from New Mexico.
Roswell?
Yeah, it's Roswell. Well, I think some came, it might be another crash, but these came from New Mexico and Roswell especially. And General Trudeau gave me the job of working out a program, put these things out, feed them to industry, but there was provisions feeding it. They could have the patents, but they had to feed them out back to us as a competitive edge of the Army and to the American people and the world if necessary. Like the Japanese interviewed me, and I told them we put the integrated circuit out, and we also gave it to you. And I told the Japanese this right at the interview at Roswell.
Give me a little laundry list of the things that, the technologies that are at least partially responsible from the Roswell.
Well, there's the number one was the integrated circuit. Number two in importance was laser, because I had some laser instruments also. Then fiber optics came out of this. The imaging devices or night viewing devices came from this. Some of the work we did on electromagnetism and the ICBMs and came from this.
The Day After Roswell is an amazing book, and you should absolutely have it on your bookshelf. And if you don't already, get it. There's another book that goes with that called Conversations with Colonel Corso, and it was written by Paola Harris, who I interviewed a few weeks ago, and you can see that interview. Where is it? Here. If you click here. That book is word for word interviews with Colonel Corso. Paola was his assistant and confidant, and she traveled with him and recorded a lot of the conversations that they had. And in that book, he goes into even more detail about how this project worked, how he would go from company to company with his German scientists. These were scientists that were recruited from the Nazis in Operation Paperclip, brought over to the United States to launch our space program over here. He would take these German scientists to these private companies, and they would work together to try and develop technologies out of this. And he would pay for this with suitcases full of cash. It's an amazing story.
I got the job of going and developing a program, which is discussed in the book how it was done. And through this program, we started feeding it out through industry. But this was not known, not put on paper. They went out as normal research and development proposals, not to name something.
Yeah, you didn't put out a report that said, here's some alien stuff, figure it out.
We put our regular research and development proposal that came from somebody's brain. And also this was known among a select few, mostly combat officers, head-to-head. We kept this among ourselves, because otherwise we were certain that they would have destroyed our organization, and we had a good organization. General Trudeau pulled it together just a couple years before. They would have destroyed our organization and labeled us as kooks and taken our budget away. So it had to be. We didn't cover because we gave it to industry with the provisions, and I'll repeat this. The provisions were to come back to us with what you prove, the competitive edge of the Army, give it to the people and to the world if necessary, and take the patents. We encourage you to take the patents. And I have this in paper written by generals in 1963.
So Colonel Corso's story is absolutely key to this whole thing and how it unfolds. And there you have David Grusch confirming this again, that a lot of that stuff is true. If you don't, and if you haven't seen this already, you should go to Colonel Corso's Wikipedia page. Check this out, just so you know who we're talking about here. This isn't just some like dude. Colonel Corso is, his military background is amazing. Listen to this. Commands held: Battalion Commander of European Air Defense, Intel Staff Officer, Plans and Estimate Branch, GHQ Far East Command, Chief Special Project Branch, G2 Section of the HQ AFFE 8000th AU Command, Chief Foreign Technology Division of the United States Department of Defense, Staff Officer in the Plans Division, OCRD, Washington, D.C., Fort Riley. Served in World War II and the Korean War. He's got the Legion of Merit, Army Commendation Medal, Bronze Star, American Campaign Medal, American Defense Service Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal, World War II Victory Medal. Colonel Corso, here's his picture here. Absolutely fascinating history there. All of this begs the question, who do we really want in charge of the relationship that we're inevitably going to have with whatever non-human intelligence is interacting with us right now? Do we want the military and private corporations to be in charge of our posture and our diplomacy? Because that certainly seems like the direction that things are headed in, unless we make a significant change. So in addition to being the bunker buster missile of disclosure, the Schumer Amendment also establishes a framework for how to bring all of this classified sort of corporate research into the civilian sector, into the public domain, so that academics at universities can actually get a look at some of this technology and some of this data and start to develop real solutions for our society and our civilization. Like we said, all of this comes back to energy at the core. That's at the center of the whole conversation. I think Stephen Greer is absolutely spot on when he highlights that as the key piece of what all of these companies are concerned about. Think about it. If you have the technology to control gravity, you basically can travel from any point to any other point instantaneously. You have control of time. You have, forget about first strike capability. UFO technology is checkmate technology. From a defense standpoint, it's being able to deliver an unlimited amount of energy to any point, anywhere, instantaneously without being detected. And if you can't be detected, you can't be stopped. So I can see a lot of reasons for secrecy are surrounding this issue. Certainly, we are not presently, as a society, in a position to digest and handle some of the power that we're talking about here, unless we fix our society first. We create a world like Star Trek that is beyond scarcity, a post-scarcity economy where everybody is taken care of. We have adequate medicine, adequate food, adequate clean water, adequate clean energy to take care of people, house them, and create a world that doesn't have conflict. So, we're transitioning our society from something, whatever it is now, into this type 1 civilization. And we have a very narrow window of opportunity to do this before things collapse to the point that we can't make such complicated impacts on our global society. So it's key that all this stuff happens right now. And I think that has a lot to do with why disclosure is moving along at an accelerated rate. How do you digest a problem this big? We do it together as a group. We all look at this from our own perspective and we ask different questions. And somewhere in the middle, we flesh out the answers together. Let me know what you think about this conversation in the comments. Please let me know if you have questions. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already, like this video, be sure to share it and subscribe to the channel. It is a heavy lift to build a channel from scratch. This is a busy space right now. A lot of people are trying to build channels in this space. So I'd appreciate your support. Subscribe, like, share. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep looking up.